So, I just got to see the I.S.S, this brand new sci-fi thriller type experience that tells a really sort of interesting story and a really great concept in this movie that is just not the best. Now, the ISS obviously stands for International Space Station. It's a movie that takes place on the International Space Station, the space station that contains both American and Russian astronauts. Now, while these characters are all hanging out on this space station, doing their jobs, doing their normal life, their normal stuff, the United States and Russia decide to do what Oppenheimer feared at the end of the Oppenheimer movie. They decide to destroy the planet, to blow up the world. So as they're blowing each other up, as the entire planet is engulfed in nuclear flames, the members of the ISS are now having to deal with what to do next. And both sides get the order. The order is very simple. Kill the other side. Now we have a movie. Now I have to say, the first trailer I saw for this movie, I immediately said, wow, I wish I had thought of that. That is a fantastic idea for a film. And as I was watching the earlier parts of this movie, the first act, I was thinking, wow, I wish I had thought of that. This is a fantastic idea. And then by the time I got to the credits, I was thinking, okay, maybe this isn't such a great idea for a movie. Or maybe it is, I don't know. I just think the execution of the idea just ended up not being as interesting as it sounds. The idea of the Earth essentially exploding and everybody dying while people are trapped in space, it's something that I've seen in movies before. It's been done before, this sort of trapped in space movie where the people on the ground aren't really going to be much of a help because they're either dead or some other circumstance. And that, in essence, creating this thriller, this psychological thriller in space could work, but the movie ends up being more interesting when you start thinking about the actual conflict. What's going on Earth? Why are they blowing each other up? That ends up being way more interesting than the plot of what's actually going on in the spaceship. And one of the issues with the ISS is the fact that none of the characters are really that interesting. There are a couple. The lead here is really, really good. It's the same girl that won the Oscar for West Side Story. She's really, really great in here. The guy from Game of Thrones, you know, the one that's like, oh, I killed Jamie fucking Lannister. I'm sorry.
I fingered the bomb.
But you know, that guy, the you know, Theon Greyjoy's, like, stepbrother or uncle or whatever the fuck it was. He's here. He's fine. I mean, nobody in this movie really does such a great job that it's going to be more, you know, memorable past, like, you know, 2 days from now. There's a dude that reminded me of Andy from The Office. There's really nothing else about his character. But I think that's one of the issues with this movie is that none of the characters are super strong. They're just very, you know, surface level, baseline stuff going on here with them. And there's just nothing that happens in this movie that really gets you engaged, especially with the characters that end up being kind of like the dicks of the story, the bad guys. They're just not interesting at all. You don't really get the motivations of any of these particular characters. There's one character that disappears in the movie for the longest time, and then they reappear, and then they go away again, and it's just kind of really dumb. But I just never was able to get interested and really sink my teeth into the thriller and the drama and the suspense of what's going on in the ISS when none of the characters really made me want to get invested like that. I was more invested with, oh, I can't wait to see at the end when they go back to Earth. What is Earth like? What's going on in the real world? That was what was more interesting to me. The lore of what was going on in this world was more interesting than what was going on as a thriller on this ISS ship. Which is the problem with this movie. They needed to find a way to really get you invested in the central plot of the story, and they just didn't. And because of that, this movie has a very, very big issue. It ends up just being boring. And I hate to call a movie boring, but it is. And boring for me, listen, there's a lot of stuff you could do wrong in movies. You can make a bad movie that's at least hilarious or fun to watch. You can make a movie that's really good. You know, you can make a movie that's bad for a multitude of different reasons, but the worst crime that you could really commit is when a movie's boring and you can't really get invested in it at all. And this is one of those movies. I just felt completely detached from it the entire time. I could not get into it at all. And then as the movie builds up and you're supposed to be feeling more and more tension in the moment, and these characters are coming to odds, they're coming to a head with each other, I just did not care. And the movie sort of ramps up into the third act, but not really. You get some really goofy fight scenes in like the zero gravity, which I understand is how they had to do it. It has to be realistic, but they're really goofy. The movie's also PG-13, so there's like moments where people are getting, you know, cut open or brutally killed, and you just don't really see it. You're like, oh my god, they're in a spaceship. Why is the blood not floating? And instead of like full-on blood, you just see like these little tiny balls, like a tiny bit. Like, dude, the guy just had his neck gashed out and he got like little tiny, like, it's stupid, it's dumb. But the movie is just way too slow, it's way too boring. It's a movie that's an hour and a half and it felt like 2.5 hours to me. and I just could not get into it. It's just not my type of thing, and the ending just felt like a limp handshake. Like, it was so unsatisfying. I wanted something more from the ending, and what that is, I don't know. I don't think you could have done a different ending unless you had a much bigger budget and you were setting up a bigger movie, which obviously this wasn't trying to do. So, like, I can't even complain that hard about the ending, because, like, I don't know what more you could do there. I mean, I guess you could do, like, some other stuff that would also have been unsatisfying, but, like, for what I was looking for personally, there's really nothing the ending could do. Like, that would have been more interesting, and it just ends up being kind of flat. And that's how the whole movie feels. It feels like a concept and an idea that was really, really good on paper, but the script just does not do enough with it, and maybe they couldn't do more with it. Maybe this is one of those ideas that just wouldn't work, because you're setting up a more interesting story outside of the I.S.S. and now have to build an interesting story within it, and it's just hard to do. It's very hard to tell a story. It's kind of like, but it is possible. I think about a movie like 10 Cloverfield Lane, where, like, you have this movie where there's something very, very interesting and mysterious happening outside of this bunker, but still within this bunker, they're able to tell a really engaging and interesting thriller that ramps up because it has super interesting characters, specifically with John Gooden's character, that just keep you really invested. And then when you get to the ending, you get the satisfying ending where you get a taste of the lore of what's actually going on. This movie just doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have the interesting characters. It doesn't have the great thriller elements. It doesn't give you the satisfying, ending when it comes to the lore of the world. There's just not much here, and because of that, I don't think I'm going to be able to give this a great score, and I really wanted to like this because I love the trailer, but I just don't think I could. They're, like even the space effects, like, I know, like, it's cool to have, like, a zero gravity, like, an entire movie that takes place in zero gravity, but I feel like we've seen stuff already, like Gravity, the movie Gravity, that have done it better, and there was even that weird, like, Jake Gyllenhaal space horror alien movie from a couple years ago that I thought was better than this. But overall, I just didn't love it. It's not the worst thing in the world, so I'll just give it a 2 out of 5. Like, it's not like 1 out of 5 Rise of Skywalker bad, but it's, it's just not a great movie. It's a movie that's going to be very forgettable for me. I'm not going to remember it past probably the moment I upload this video. But yeah, it has like a 60-something% on Rotten Tomatoes, so maybe I'm in the minority of this opinion. Maybe I'm like one of the people it just didn't work for, and everybody else fucking loves the I.S.S. This is going to be everybody's favorite space horror movie of the year. By the way, there was a trailer that played before this movie. I forgot the name of the movie, but I'll put up like a preview or something of it right now. Whatever this movie is, it looks fucking great, and I'm excited for that. Looks like Robert Eggers and M. Night Shyamalan had, like, a baby, and the baby was this movie. Like, oh, it looks so good. But yeah, that's the video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to click the video on your screen right now, and I will see you in the next one.